Folks. It is Friday, September, what is today? 2nd? 4th. Okay, it's September 4th. Thanks for tuning in. This is going to be the second of a series that I'm doing essentially every Wednesday and Friday at 1:30 Pacific. I thought I would reach folks here in this forum and just speak very casually. I was doing some highly produced YouTube videos at the beginning of the year, and those are super fun and those were great. But I realized, and I said this in my last live video, that there's a lot of time that it takes from when I record that and when I speak and getting it to you, and to get it to you in a shorter amount of time is too much. It's too much stress on the schedule. It's too much stress within the time frame. It's too much stress on me and my husband. It's not like a whole lot of it, but even just a little bit can be too much when you've got a lot of things going on. So hence why we're here. And I'm also figuring out the tech side of things, because as you know, this is gonna, if you saw the first live video, this looks different than that one. That one, my image was compressed horizontally, and I don't know why. So just testing different things out here. So thanks for bearing with me as I'm on this learning curve with all of this. So today I thought we'd chat for a little bit around self-empowerment. I work with folks as an impact and empowerment coach for women, and self-empowerment is one of the mainstays of our work together. So while this is a term that I use all the time, I feel like all day, every day, I understand that it's not in everyone's vocabulary, everyone's most commonly used vocabulary. So I figured we could chat about that today. What does that look like? What does it mean? And so grab your nerd glasses. We're going to start with what does empowerment mean at all? How does Merriam-Webster define it? So the dictionary has defined empowerment as the act or action of empowering someone or something, meaning the granting of the power, right, or authority to perform various acts or duty. So when we talk about granting the right, granting the power, granting the authority to do things or to have access to things, we got to start when we talk about self-empowerment. What does that mean to you? When you are empowering yourself, that means that you're setting yourself up. In a nutshell, you're setting yourself up in as many ways and as many different platforms as you can so that you can go about doing what you want to do in life. That's essentially what this is talking about. How do you get out of your own way? How do you put yourself in the best position to succeed? When we talk about success, I'm not talking about, fame and riches and the ever increasingly outdated definition or concept of success. Success when it comes to the realm of self-empowerment, this is where we're talking about you living a fulfilling, vibrant life. You living the life that you really want to be living, the life that you allow yourself to live, because a lot of times we don't even allow ourselves to want. Right? We allow ourselves to dream a version of life and set expectations that are within a certain set of boundaries, right? Well, this seems likely. This makes sense, this type of life. I expect to, by a certain age, get married, have kids, have a job, have a house. There's this kind of sometimes even explicitly written checklist that people have. And the checklist is populated by things that are considered normal and considered good within the community and environment that you're growing up. One of my very first clients back in, I think this was 2016, she came to me in a lot of anguish. Coaches receive folks who are in a state of discontent because they know that there's the person coming into my world, or any coach's world, knows that there's room to grow. It's time to shed a version of themselves and develop another version of themselves, right? So this particular person, she came into my world and she wasn't just discontent. She was really beating herself up. She was in a place of like anguish because she was in, she was mid-20s. I think she was like 26, around 26. And she was super upset because she was behind on her life plan. She hadn't found someone that she believed she was going to marry. She expected to have kids really soon. She was dissatisfied with the progression of her career thus far. And she was chalking her life up to be a failure at 26. Now, when we are biologically capable of living past 90, I was just watching a really awesome couple of YouTube videos on blue zones where there are populations of people who live past 100, and that is the norm. For right now, we can look at like 70s to 90s. When we are biologically wired to live into our 70s, 80s, 90s, for those who really take care of themselves, are really lucky, past 100, and you're cutting yourself off for whether you have succeeded or failed in life in your 20s, that is disempowering, right? And this particular client, she's a product of the environment and experiences that she had come across in her 26 years up to then, right? So these aren't arbitrary expectations that she set for herself. These are things that are talked about, that are encouraged, that are nudged, right? These are little messages that we receive as we move through life saying, this is the way you're supposed to live, and this is how you're supposed to define success for yourself. Success looks like a successful life, looks like married by, 27, kids by 29 at least, and having a career by age 32 after you pop out the kids and you're raising them and you're doing the whole move from a stay-at-home mom thing into a professional, like working mom. And because her life hadn't fit into these expectations that she had unknowingly picked up along the way and said, I have to measure my worth by this, not am I successful, am I winning? She had taken it to a deeper level of, am I worthy as a human being? I have failed as a human being. I have failed as an organism because I haven't checked these boxes that I have collected along my life journey up to now. And of course, when you believe you are worthless as a person, when you believe you are failing, and you've just spent the first 25 years figuring out how to live, and a lot happens in those 25 years, right? You figure out how to communicate, you figure out all the basics of child development, how to do biological functions, how to take care of yourself, how to feed yourself, how to clothe yourself. You start to learn how to navigate society, so societal interactions. You're starting to learn relationships. What does a family unit look like? Is that healthy? You assume, you do the best you can with what you've been given, right? With what you arrive into. So whatever her family situation was, navigating a just fire hose of education from age 5-ish to she went to college, so that was about 20 to 22. There's a lot coming in on those first 25 years of life, right? And so for you to expect yourself to absorb survival skills, educational skills, social relationships, which even of those themselves, some people never figure out how to navigate because they're so complex, right? Figuring out what you want to do in life, who you really are, that itself is a huge undertaking, right? And so to expect yourself to do that and to have found a life partner that you're going to love and bare minimum tolerate, and hopefully love and respect for the rest of your 75 years, for you to have found that person, committed to that person, and say, yes, I want to procreate with that person, that's kind of a tall order, right? It's a disempowering expectation, right? It's a disempowering way to think about ourselves. It's asking an unreasonable thing of ourselves. So she came to me in that state of mind, and we did some work around redefining what does success look like. So this is something that I'd love to bring to you when it talks about when we talk about empowering yourself, granting yourself the power, the right, the authority for you to live the way that you want to live. What can you do around that? You always want to come back to the question, what can I do where I am with what I have? Who you are today knows certain things, has been exposed to certain things, has interacted with different kinds of folks, and you're going to have so much more exposure to other people, to other circumstances, to other experiences in the next week, even, not even the next like 50 years. This is simply accepting, okay, the person I am today, this is who I've got to work with, right? This is the amazing person who made it past survival, who received the fire hose of stimulus around relationships, around education, around like expectations, and just navigating, just existing in the first place. Here I am, right? I have survived 100% of my worst days. Here I am. This is the person who is going to be making the decisions for the next couple of days, right? For the next, foreseeable future, this is the person who's making the decisions. And so you got to grant yourself a little bit of grace, saying this is the best that I can do because this is what I've got to work with, right? So when you set yourself on a place of, set yourself up in a place of grace and saying, hey, I don't know everything. I don't know everyone. I haven't been exposed to all the things that I could potentially be lit up by, right? Embrace the unknown. Embrace the fact that you don't know everything by saying, okay, what I can do today, an empowering move would be to say, okay, what I can do, given that there's still so much to learn and so more people to meet and so many things to do, given who I am in this moment with the experiences I have, what can I do? I can commit to a life of learning and being curious instead of saying, nope, I already know everything. My opinions can't be changed. My opinions and worldviews are formed and they are set in stone for the rest of my life. That's disempowering, right? Because you're writing yourself out of potential growth, potential evolution, potential new ideas and opinions. So we want to commit to a life of growth, right? We want to commit to a life of curiosity. What if things were different? What if I didn't live here? What if I lived somewhere else? What if I surrounded myself with different folks who believe different things or who treated themselves differently, treated other people differently? What if? It's not saying that this is correct. It's priming your brain to constantly be in a space of learning and curiosity. This makes you a more open person. This makes you more receptive to new information, right? This makes you more receptive to potential ways of living and existing and working and interacting with folks. So we always want to put ourselves in a position of, I'm here to learn. I'm here to grow. I recognize I don't have all the answers. I do know I know a few things, and it's that experience and that knowledge that I'm going to be making these decisions by, and I'm going to be constantly welcoming and filtering new things that come to me as well. So when we want to empower ourselves, we don't just want to empower our perspective. Being open is huge. Being curious is in and of itself massively empowering. I wrote down notes around 5 different areas where you can empower yourself, essentially grant yourself the right, the power, the authority to live the life that you truly want to live. The first and probably biggest thing, the starting point when it comes to self-empowerment, is empowering the mind. Because the mind likes order, it likes categorization, it likes to know the things. It doesn't like the unknowing, right? And so when it doesn't know something, it's going to fill in the gaps and say, it's got to be like this. That person said that thing because they probably meant, or they were probably implying, and our brain is just trying to fill in the gaps, right? It's just biology, how it's wired to fill in the gaps. It doesn't do well when there are pieces missing. There's a lot of really cool research around, when there's a blind spot in our vision, the brain actually fills in with what it thinks is going to be there in our vision, the picture. So when you're looking at this screen, those what are these little like file folder organizer things? If that was missing, your brain would actually fill in a blank spot or something similar to what's around it, right? Because it needs to have the full picture. It has a desire to know all the things, because if there's uncertainty, that means you are vulnerable. What if there's a scary threat there? And it doesn't like vulnerability, right? Our bodies are wired to keep us alive. So let's backtrack out of there. I end up down these rabbit holes sometimes. When we talk about empowering the mind, we need to recognize what we're running through the mind. If we're constantly looking for worst case scenario, if we're constantly looking for all the bad things that could go wrong in a relationship, in a work environment, in an uncertain, environment or context. So like the other day, that's way off track. Let me back out again. I keep like wanting to go down all these rabbit holes. I love all this stuff, and I have so many stories to tell, but I only have so much time in these little live chats. By the way, if you want to drop a comment, feel free, because I can see that live and I can address that here, or I can write to you afterwards and reply back. When we empower the mind, we want to make sure what kind of thoughts we're thinking are working in our favor. They're not working against us. So one of the most powerful things that we have as human beings is the power of imagination. We can create circumstances in our minds that don't exist, that haven't happened yet. So right here in the present time, I can think about the next hour. And I can intentionally think about, okay, what are all the awful things that could happen in the next hour? And my brain can run, right? That doesn't do me any good. It actually does me, does me bad is a real thing, but it's disempowering, because those thoughts of worst case scenario will send signals to my central nervous system saying, hey, we're going to be in a not great situation in the next hour, so we have to brace ourselves. And it is sending chemical signals through your body that's unsustainable. Those types of signals are supposed to be when you're in an actual dangerous situation, so that there's giving you like bursts of energy and having access to energy reserves, but for a short period of time. They're designed to just get you in and get you out. They're not supposed to be in your system all the time. It will break down your cells. It is not good for you. And it is emotionally just not a great space to be, right? Nobody likes being in that space. Something pops into mind. Sometimes it can feel like you do like being in that space, actually. That's a topic for another day. When we like being in the darkness, when we like being in the disempowered state, that deserves its entirely own chat and video. So I'll leave that for that. But when we talk about empowering the mind, we want to say, okay, think of my brain. My brain is basically a Google search engine. Whatever I'm putting into it, it's going to go find all the search results that match up with that query. So if I'm thinking, I don't know how this presentation is going to go, or, oh my gosh, this client meeting is going to go so badly, it's going to say, yeah, it might, because this, and this. Like, remember that time, like you bombed a presentation? Remember that time that you had that awful client? Remember that time you got in an argument? And it's going to say, okay, let me search the reserves for all the things that have happened and that might happen in the future, and give you a search result list that matches what you put into the query box in the first place. So we want to be more mindful of the things that we're putting in the first place, right? Because what we're getting out, we want to make sure that that stuff is serving us and setting us up to go into the next hour, or the next conversation, or whatever it is, in the place that allows you to show up the way that you want to show up, that allows you to create the results you want to create, instead of creating a greater likelihood of things going the way that you don't want them to go. So what we put into our mind is super, super important. The things that we tell ourselves, the things that we say to the way that we think about ourselves, the way that we assume. You want to keep an eye on those assumptions and judgments. What kind of, mental gaps are we filling by saying, you know what, they're probably out to screw me over. Everyone's out to screw you over. So I got to be wary of people trying to take advantage of me. You will always be seeing examples of people taking advantage of other people if that's what you're focusing on. You will also see the complete opposite if you look for it. So it's essentially setting the search filters in your mind. What are you putting in and what are you getting out? They are related. Be mindful of what you're putting in. Empowering your body to live the life that you want. Chances are you want to have your physical body will be part of that life, right? So when you think about the life that you would love to live, what would you love your body to be able to do? What would you love it to be able to be capable of? What would you love it to feel like? Do you want to feel tired? Do you want to feel stressed and anxious all the time? Do you want it to take forever to recover from an illness? What can you do now to empower your body so that it gets closer and closer to the way that you'd love it to be in that version of your life that you want to be living for yourself? A third way you can empower yourself is around community. Who are you surrounded by, right? What kind of folks are you choosing to be in your world? Now, of course, we all have folks. It's very common to be in situations where you are around people that you haven't chosen, for them to be around. Maybe you have like an office mate who is just living in that negative space, and they have like built a house in that negative space, and they're not going anywhere. Or they are so self-deprecating, or they're really poisonous with their views of other people, and you're just surrounded by that person all the time, right? So you do what you can to curate the folks that you're surrounded by, right? And so that they are reflective of you being able to live the life that you love. So they're supportive of your dreams, or they're at least encouraging of you doing whatever you want to do. You're supportive of one another. There's open and honest communication and healthy relationships between you. And the folks who are in your world, who you have to be around because of, you choose to work there, if this is a poisonous office mate. The choice is in, you still choose to work there. You want to ask yourself, what can I do where I am with what I have? Well, if I choose to work here, I could ask to be seated somewhere else. I could ask to have my desk moved or to move to a different part of the workplace. I could ask to work a different shift than them if they work a certain shift and you want to work another shift. You could ask to be moved to another team. And you could do multiple of these things at once. You can seek assistance with dealing with and interacting with difficult people, right? Dealing with toxic people. So it's not about hiding from folks who don't fit your desired community. It's more about what can you do to empower yourself to manage these toxic relationships and exchanges when they arise, right? Because we're always going to be around people who we don't necessarily we would otherwise choose to not be around, right? So an empowering move would be able to say, okay, like, how can I get better at dealing with this type of energy? So it's not about, well, I'm just surrounded by negative people all day. What am I supposed to do? Well, what can you do? What can I do where I am with what I have? You can seek out resources that help you get better at maintaining distance from that type of negativity and toxicity. You can get better at building, it could be around building self-confidence. Maybe you have someone in your life who's always telling you that you're worthless, or that you're ugly, or that you are dumb, or they're just directly imposing these negative assumptions, these disempowering assumptions and judgments on you. Well, what you can do is you can work to deflect that so that it doesn't land for you, so that it's just like, what? So it comes eventually to a space of, if someone were to tell you you're dumb or not qualified, when you hear it, the work that you've done has allowed you to process that as if they had said, like, you're such a bird. It's like, what? Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, it doesn't hurt me because it means nothing to me, because I know I'm not a bird. So it's not going to land for me, right? So when someone is spewing their, negative stuff on you, the role you can do, because we can't control other people. We don't want to control other people. We can control ourselves, and we can develop ourselves to say, okay, regardless of what kind of information and judgments and negativity I'm getting, here's who I know myself to be. And here's how I can build my sense of self-identity and confidence, so that when people say these kinds of things, like, okay, I'm sorry that you're in such a negative space right now. I hope you can work through that. But yeah, I'm just going to keep doing me. You keep spewing the hate, but I'm going to get back to my life here and living the way I want to be living. Another way to empower yourself is to set yourself up for the environments that you move through each day. Your home, the places that you spend the most time. How can you make them places that you feel good? If you're working in amongst like a really messy space, and you are not one of those people who's like, mess is my creative expression, and you don't like the mess, do something about it. What can you do, right? If you feel like different colors of paint bring you alive, bring that color in. Maybe wear that color. Maybe set up, like this. Actually, this is one of the colors that brings me alive. This kind of like teal, blue, green color. So I have a lot of it everywhere. I have this water bottle, which is huge. It's always around my desk. Coincidentally, I have a decorative like tile piece that I got on vacation in Spain, and the color obviously caught my eye because I love that kind of color, and I love how I feel when I'm around that color. So I make an effort to surround myself with things that kind of fall into that color palette. Very simple stuff. Self-empowerment can be very simple if we break it down to the question of, what can I do where I am with what I have? It doesn't have to be, I have to go move to the Himalayas and live among, people who are spiritually enlightened. That's one option. Yeah. And in the meantime, there are plenty of things that you can do to help empower yourself, to help set you up. What is that official definition again? The act or action of granting the power, the right, or the authority to perform various acts or duties. The power, the right, the authority to live the life that you want to be living. So what's going to give you that power? What's going to give you that authority and that sense of right to live the life you want to live? Part of your environment, the places that you're around, and the experience that you have in the physical space, since your physical body is part of this life, and the physical body has to be in a physical space in this world, right? So what can we do to make those the way that we want them to be, to feel the way we want to be feeling, so that we can go on and do the things we want to be doing, live the life we want to be living? The fifth thing on my list is resources. So resources, I'm talking primarily about three different things: your time, your money, and your attention. The things that you devote your attention and focus and energy toward, the things that you devote your time and money toward. These are things that are yours. You choose to allocate them to certain things, right? So if you're going to choose to allocate your energy and your focus to social media all day, one, your thumb is going to start to ache because you are scrolling all the time. It's an embarrassing thing that happened to me not that long ago, where I'm like, my right thumb is like really sore. Why is that? I noticed when I was swiping through Instagram, just like mindlessly scrolling one night, I was like, oh, that's the motion. That's why this hurts, because I've been on Instagram way too long. Not an empowering use of allocating my time, and more importantly, my attention, my focus and energy. Because mindlessly scrolling is just saying, I'm accepting, by putting my eyeballs on that screen and just scrolling, I am accepting whatever comes through that phone and taking a very passive role in my life in that moment. I'm being passive with these gifts of having focus and attention. It is amazing that you have the capacity to intentionally direct your observation and processing abilities the way that you want to. So use them intentionally. Use them in a way that's going to help you live the life that you want to live. So maybe it's something about learning about self-confidence. Maybe it's devoting your time and energy and resources to getting a mentor, or getting a coach, or getting just having a conversation with people who you admire. Maybe it's about closing your eyes and focusing internally on your breathing, on your systems, on your mind and your thoughts, right? And deciding that this is the best use of my time and my money and my attention in this moment, because it will empower me in that it will grant me the power to help me live the life that I want to be living. The things that you spend your money on, the things that you spend your time on, are they helping you get to that life that you want to be living? Are they helping you get to where you want to be? Or are they old habits that are running on autopilot that are serving an old paradigm? That's the question you got to ask. When you look at your bank statements, are these things that are life-giving? Like, hey, looks like payment to the electricity company went out. That's great, because electricity empowers me to do things like this, like reach you, to have a working laptop, to charge my phone, to keep the food in my fridge cold. The payments to maybe subscriptions for different apps that I go on like once a month, not very empowering, right? Because it's not really making a difference in setting me up to live the life that I want to be living. So what can I do? Let me cancel that subscription, reclaim that leak of money, and either hang on to it until I decide what else to do with it, or redirect it in a way that's going to provide some kind of life-giving, empowering situation for me. So, these are really precious things. Your mind, your body, the community of people you surround yourself with, the environments and the way that they're set up in which you move around, and your resources of time and money and attention. These are really, really powerful things. You change even one of those things just slightly, your quality of life changes. The way that you experience life changes. So let's be mindful about how we can intentionally set those things up so that we are now in a state where we can go and do the things we want to do. We can learn the things we want to live. We can go forward and take steps toward the life that we would love to live. Now, before I sign off, I also wanted to note that living the life that you live, part of self-empowerment is allowing yourself to want something, is allowing yourself to dream past the expectations that we have put upon ourselves. That checklist that I talked about in the beginning, allowing ourselves to live past the checklist, empowering yourself, giving yourself permission. What is that in the definition? Granting the power, granting the right, granting the authority to go live the life you want to be living. You have permission to go for a life that looks different than the ones you've seen around you. You have permission to be successful in a way that feels good to you. So a lot of times, a lot of people will say, success is like when you have your multi-million-dollar mansion on the cliffs of Malibu and you're taking private jets everywhere. And that might be one person's definition of success, but self-empowerment includes you granting yourself the right, the power, the authority to define success, define a beautiful life for yourself, and say, what does this mean to me? What does that look like for me? It doesn't matter what other people think, right? It matters only as much as they're in your world and you got to deal with them, right? So that's on you to navigate. How do I want to interface with this person in a way that I feel aligned and good about me, and that empowers me to continue to live the life that I want, not at the expense of that. Like, oh, if I just make people happy, then I got to water down the dream of the life that I'm going for. That is not self-empowering. Just because you're thriving in a relationship, which is, if that's a person who's going to be stunting what you want to do in life, provided you're not hurting people or hurting the environment, that person, probably not someone you should be taking advice from. Probably not someone who you should be sacrificing your vision of a beautiful life for. If that's how they want to go around, watering down people's dreams. And we'll do I'll probably do a video separate on that, because people generally have the best of intentions. They don't mean for you to be like, no, I don't want you to succeed. I want you to live in a box. And I want you to live according to my guidelines. People don't necessarily consciously want to be doing that. They're accidentally doing that. They're unintentionally hurting one another by saying, you sure you want to do that? That sounds like kind of risky. That sounds kind of weird. By sharing how they're interpreting what you're saying, what you're going for in life, in a way that is unsupportive. They don't mean to necessarily be like popping your bubble, popping your balloon. They're just giving feedback based on the lens that they see their own life through, right? And if your definition, if the goals that you want to go for don't match up the goals that they think people are supposed to have, then you can expect that kind of feedback. Now, you can take that as, okay, that's where they are and that's how they see the world. Or you can say, oh my gosh, like I'm going to second guess my dream and maybe I should shoot for different things. And it's a very natural thing that happens, and it happens all the time, every day. I see people every day who are compromising their happiness to make other people comfortable. And that doesn't mean you just go around making everybody uncomfortable. It means that you learn how to navigate that. And self-empowerment is a huge part of that. How can I maintain my relationships and go for the dream that I want at the same time? That's another conversation. But I just wanted to plant the seed here so that you understand and start to think about, what is it that I can do to grant myself permission, to grant myself the power and the right and the authority to design and live a life that I would love to live. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, hopefully you have questions, because hopefully this kind of unlocks something for you and you start thinking about your own life differently, and starts to have things bubble up to the surface. Drop a comment. Let me know. And also, for some of those questions, maybe I'll do a video on it as an answer. Thank you for tuning in. I hope this is valuable. If you have some folks in your world who live from a very disempowered place, and this or other videos that I've done might help them, please go ahead and share that with them. We're all in this thing called life together. We're all doing the best that we can, given what we've got. And if having one of these videos can help them, let's do it, right? Okay. So this is the second live video. I go live as of this week. I officially go live at 1:30 p.m. Pacific every Wednesday and every Friday. And I look forward to serving you in this way. It's obviously totally free, and it's just something I want to do to help reach people and help them think a little bit differently from a place where they can set themselves up for going after the life that they would love in the future, and to be living life of a higher quality now. That their experience day to day is better, whatever that looks like for them. Right, so I hope this is useful, and I will see you on Wednesday next week. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you get notified when I go live. Otherwise, put it on your Google Calendar or whatever calendar that you use and get those notifications. Have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you next week.